take care of business, and we're happy to have him. So Joe Kraus, West Licking.
Hey, thanks everyone. I appreciate the invite. You guys are going to be the largest group so far that I get to present to, so don't beat me up too bad, right? So I feel bad for the camera guy because I am a pacer. So, but we'll try to stay in the range and not stand in front of the screen for you as well. But again, just to introduce myself real quick, again, my name is Joe Kraus. I've been in the fire service for about 24 years now. I've been the assistant chief, one of the assistant chiefs at West Licking for the last 7 years. To give you a quick synopsis of West Licking now, as a fire district, to kind of give you a basis of who we are. We cover 9 different entities over about 125 to 130 square miles. So we cover from the Franklin County line to east of Hebron, from Worthington Road to the Fairfield County line. We operate out of 6 fire stations. With those stations, we have we have a ladder, 2 rescue engines, 3 other engines, and 6 frontline medics and a battalion chief. That's our normal out the door staffing every day. So to give you that basis, our minimum staffing every shift is 25. That's our full timers. We can supplement up to 5 part timers a day. We struggle with part time, so generally, if we have everybody off and we're not filling any overtime, we're at 25. That's generally what our staffing is for the shift, and everything like that. But on this day, we'll go over what our staffing was and everything like in that regards. So to kind of start out the way the morning was, there was a union meeting going on at Station 1. So every station was sitting at Station 1 on Broad Street for their union meeting, and except for Station 6, depending on where the union meeting is, we leave the most outlying station in quarters, so we're not having everybody at Central just because of the mass size of our district. On those days when we have union meetings, admin personnel spread out through the district, so we have the ability to first respond until we can get another company on scene. I was sitting at Station 3, which was on Mink Street, and that's where I responded from. Is the transition slides. So just our dispatch and our response. So essentially, we were dispatched for a high-speed auto accident with possible entrapment. That was our initial dispatch. That's an engine, a rescue, 2 medics, and a battalion chief. That's our initial dispatch. Immediately, we started getting updates from Fire Control. Fire Control is our dispatch center. They operate out of Newark, or actually Heath now. They're at the Boeing facility, and they immediately started plugging us with information. I added myself to the card because I came from Mink Street. Just from the information that was immediately getting broadcasted, Chief 400, Medic 404, 592, Medic 401, and Chief 401, we all added ourselves to the card. Because mainly everyone was already sitting at Station 1. Everyone was coming from the same location. A couple minutes into the response, they started reporting that they've received reports that a possible at least 57 people on the bus. And then we upgraded that to our MCI. It's like, and then, well, essentially they said we had 6 to 7. You'll hear some of this audio if we can get it to go through. And then they said up to 57, then we upgraded to an MCI2 and everything. So next slide. So that
on your MCI, what do you get on like an MCI1 compared to an MCI2?
So our MCI1 is essentially our active shooter response. We get 4 medics, 4 engines, 4 battalions. That's our initial response on an MCI1. And we bring more engine companies just because we want them to be our tactical. They're going to be our entry crews. So we're not tying up our medics. We want our medics to be able to transport. We want our engine companies to go in and do the treatment and do the triage and everything like that and be our entry teams. So that's essentially what our MCI was. We want our medics to be able to be available for treatment and transport and get our engine companies helping with triage and everything like that. When it comes to an MCI2, That automatically bumps us up to where we get a total, and these are totals as we go. It will give us a total of 10 medics responding. It'll give us another 3 more engine companies, and it sends 2 more battalion companies, and as well, we get 2 helicopters automatically put on standby. When we go to an MCI 3, that gives us a total of 19 medics coming. It gives us another 4 more engine companies, and it sends another 2 more battalions, and 2 helicopters automatically launch. 2 more get put on standby. And that's where we stop at that MCI 3. If we go beyond that, then these are special calls that we're just saying, hey, we need more medics, or we need more engine companies. Way our run cards are pulled, those engine companies could be rescues, they could be ladders, they could be anything on how our run cards are set up, because we utilize AVL dispatching. When it's in that mode, they're sending the closest suppression units. So I'm just saying engines just because it's just easier to say in reference to that. Does that answer your question? Okay. If we were able to play the audio, that'd be great. This is just a quick soundbite. This is essentially the initial response up to the point I mark on scene. And granted, you got to reference some of this presentation was put together for our fire board and things like that. So you guys might have already heard this, but. Can you guys hear the audio? I can't tell if any of them's acknowledging.
This is 4-3 go. Forward by 611. This is 4-2 replacing 611. G42 fire control. Continuing 611 until we get on scene.
And at this point, I could see column of black smoke.
You're clear. Continue on 611 until you get on scene.
Medic 405 to battalion. Good, medic. I'm not sure if you're able to read your notes, but it's showing a semi-truck and a bus collision.
Fire control to battalion 1, 401.
Good, fire control.
We have a message saying there's at least 5 or 6 injured on the bus. Do you want to start a mass casualty?
That's affirmative, fire control. Good.
You're clear.
Rescue fire control.
Go ahead.
We're en route. There's a large black cloud in the area of this run.
You're clear. Confirmed per traffic cameras.
Fire control, battalion 591 en route on the freeway.
You're clear. Battalion 591 en route.
Engine 611 en route.
Fire control to Chief 402.
Good.
We have heavy fire on the traffic camera, and we are being advised that there is children trapped on the bus.
All right, you're clear. Go ahead and start 2 tankers as well as the freeway.
You're clear. Starting 2 tankers. We're also being advised that there is possibly 57 people on this bus.
You're clear. Go ahead and upgrade to level 2 MCI.
You're clear.
Fire control, you can add Chief 400.
Chief 400 en route.
Chief 402 to all Station 1 company. Take the westbound lane east.
Clear on the westbound east. Fire control, can we also get SO to close down the ramps, please?
You're clear.
Chief 402 fire control.
Chief 402, go ahead.
I'm going to be on scene. We've got a heavily involved semi. We also got a bus starting to be involved. We still do have people on the bus. First new engine company, you're going to the bus to start extrication and rescue.
That should be it on the audio. All right, so we put this little segment in here to kind of to highlight our dispatchers, because they really did a good job prompting us in the aspect of getting that information. They immediately went and got traffic camera footage, got on there, they confirmed that it was a working fire. They could see it. You're going to have there's going to be a photo of what that traffic cam looks like about 10 to 12 minutes into the incident from the time of call here coming up. They were, so they kept prompting us, which was great. They gave us a little bit of information. She didn't get the answer that she wanted out of me after the one when she said, hey, we got it confirmed, there is a working fire and everything like that. I said I needed 2 more tankers. And then she's like, okay, hey, we have 57 people. All right, I'm telling you, you need more resources than what you got coming. So please add them, kind of thing. So, in the aspect that they were great in the way they prompted us and like, do you want this MCI stuff? Okay. You guys got me now? All right, appreciate you. So they continue to prompt us, which was great. One of the the things that we as an organization have do a little bit, the one medic company prompted the battalion and said, hey, if you haven't seen your notes, this is what they're saying. We don't really encourage our battalions to look at their notes as they're responding. They're the only ones in that vehicle. It's like we want them paying attention to the road. So we've encouraged our officers is like, if there's some pertinent information coming across, hey, just let the battalion know real quick, because they're sitting in the right front seat and they have someone driving them. Battalion, in our situation, we don't have a driver. So, so that's why some of those prompts were coming over. So, those are beneficial. Even though, it's like, was information provided? Yes, information was provided to the battalion before that, but that medic crew didn't hear that at that moment. Coming to this photo right here, this is the one I could try to find that will you go back just real quick? This is the closest one I could find to what kind of conditions I had when I pulled up from all the video. I mean, this is someone that pulled across the road on I-70 and was videoing it. We found this off of social media. Actually, is like on this, to segue just a little bit, if it wasn't for semi-truck drivers and passerbys that stopped, there would have been a lot more kids killed that day. They pulled out a handful of kids that could not get out prior to our arrival, and the school staff, there's the one lady from the band, she didn't get much notoriety at all from in the actual media, but if you listen to the 911 call that she was on, she was the one coordinating that whole operation with getting those kids in order. She was starting to triage herself when we arrived, and it was great. But when you're looking at this van, right above where it says the R and A on the trails portion of that Pioneer Trails, 2 semi-truck drivers busted out a window prior to our arrival and pulled a girl out right there. She actually climbed over 2 bodies to get out. That's the only way she was going to get out, is by those 2 truck drivers. So it was great, and the amount of support that people just stopped and did some great things. You can go to the next slide. All right, so this is just a quick breakdown of the incident command structure. I was the first one on scene. I was the incident command. Chief 401, he arrived a little bit later. That was Chief Trinish from our department. He essentially came to the command post and helped me with scribing. We ended up having 4 or 5 radio channels going on at the same time, so I was able to stay focused on the 2 main operating channels that I had going, and then he was able to monitor the other ones, and then just became a scribe, which was extremely beneficial, because the first 18 minutes of that incident, I was in the vehicle myself. trying, and it was like, I was able to keep track of it because we were able to break it down very quickly. And I only had to listen to essentially to 4 or 5 people. I know, there's always that debate, like, do you leave the vehicle? Do you stay in the vehicle? Do you leave the vehicle? Do you stay in the vehicle? I stayed in the vehicle the whole time. My windows were up. I had people coming up to my doors the whole time. If they didn't have any pertinent information that I thought was going to be important, I did not roll my window down. And it was important for me because there was just so much going on that initial arrival. If I would have missed, in my mind, I would have missed too much if I would have taken the time to roll down just to talk to some passerbys that kept knocking on, or the different people that just felt that they needed to say something at that moment. I married up with a deputy that was on scene right away. He became my law enforcement liaison, in which that really helped out quite a bit as well. Because the one issue that we ran into throughout the progression of the scene, because State Highway Patrol ended up essentially taking ownership of the investigation of that incident until NTSB was arriving as well. Anytime a new officer of higher rank showed up, they became in charge. It didn't stay the initial person. It was like, and as the joke was, it's like the nicer they were dressed, the more rank they had. And it became kind of hard. So that was the great part of having the law enforcement officer with me and be like, okay, hey, I need this information. He knew who to talk to just because of interacting with them all the time. Like, I would not have known who to interact with as the post arrival of a command structure was coming in. Chief Majors, when he arrived, he essentially acted as the scene liaison for us. He was the one that just was constantly running between the different branches of the operation and just kind of keeping tabs. And then he was communicating with me directly. I know, and I apologize for jumping around a little bit, but our main operations, Ops 1 was what our assigned ops channel was. We always go to a simplex tactical channel on arrival, and then we'll repeat it. So we were on, so Ops 1 was my command channel, 7 Fire 84 Direct, that was our fire operations rescue channel. Ops 2 became EMS, and then another portion, we were pulling people in that normally wouldn't run with us on a daily basis. So they didn't have our channels. So then we had to set up a patch essentially through Mech Center, and Mech Center became communication for some of these outside agencies to communicate with us. And that kind of helped out with some of, as Madison Township said, it's like, we never thought in a million years we would be at 310 and 70 on anything. 183s was sitting on scene, and they're like, man, this is crazy. So now we, interoperability. The dispatch center had LEComs and EComs reserved for us already. We didn't utilize them, but they were at our disposal if we needed to, and we could have had everybody switch to an ECom, and then everybody would have had interoperability. But at that time, the scene was just, in my opinion, too active to try to get a complete radio shift. So operations, Battalion 401 was assigned fire and rescue operations. EMS operations was assigned to Battalion 591 from Violet. Hazmat was Tom Barnhill. He's one of our lieutenants. He's Hazmat 2 for the county. He came to the scene and he became our Hazmat liaison with Hazmat 4 from Columbus. EMS 401, which is Ginger Wortman, she oversaw our triage, and Battalion 161 from Truro was our transport sector. So here's a kind of a drone footage, and this is probably an hour and a half into the incident because trucks have been moved so we can try to help get traffic through. And I know it's kind of going to be difficult for everybody on the out stations to possibly see this, but so you see off to the right of the screen, you got the white box semi up in front, you got the bus right behind it, and then you got the other semi that was burnt up directly behind it. Between the bus and the semi, there was a passenger vehicle. We didn't know that was a passenger vehicle until about 30 minutes into the run, into the incident. It was just that annihilated of a vehicle. And then just immediately to the left of the burnout semi was a red SUV that was kind of just collateral damage in the whole mix of the auto accident. But the semi all the way to the front and the white trailer, that semi was leaking a liquid. It come to be, it was animal fat. So that became a hazmat incident for us. Immediately just it'd be west from the box semi. This is where a lot of the EMS triage was being done in that area. All the kids were lined up here when we arrived. So this is where all EMS was done. Right here, immediately crossing the bus, this little red vehicle in the eastbound lanes next to where that COTA bus and the highway patrol post, that's my vehicle. That's where the command post was. And then we also had right here where this burnout semi is, just immediately to the east of everything by the green sign. Just left of that whole like burnout section and the burnout section to the right, that semi was loaded full of batteries. So that was our other hazmat. We didn't know if the batteries have already been recycled, if there's liquids in them, what kind of batteries they were at the moment. That semi truck driver was injured. He was one of the ones transported. So we didn't get a lot of information. So essentially when we arrived, we had heavy fire in the semi. The semi was burning up, and we had heavy fire into the rear of the bus. And then within probably 30 seconds after my arrival, the windows busted out on the rear of the bus, and that bus was just fully engulfed towards the rear, not the entire. And then we had two hazmat incidents. We had a brush fire, grass fire going and stuff. So, and then we had an MCI with 62 patients. And so it was just, we had a lot going on. So, and became, challenges that we just check off as we go. Next slide. So this is a photo about 12 minutes into the incident from the time of dispatch. So you can see where the trucks are placed. So this is, we got the bus on fire, we got a semi on fire, we got the grass fire. This is Rescue 401, Engine 403, Engine 402 is to the left, Medic 405 and 402. You can see Basil's engine sitting right here, and then this is Rescue 592 getting ready to pull up. Rescue 592, they actually peeled themselves off of another run. They were on their way to a lift assist, and they're like, we saw the column smoke, they busted out, and everything like that. So, and this is that trooper. If you ever saw the video of that trooper making entry to the bus, that was his vehicle right there. So, when it comes to arrival, and then this is my vehicle where the command post is. Yeah. So just to summarize some of what we felt were some major strengths immediately. It was like dispatch provided us with great information that was beneficial to the actual incident. It wasn't anything just out of the ordinary. It was pertinent, purposeful information. We deployed our MCI that was quick, and we followed our previous training guidelines. I don't know if you know much about some of what our history is. For some reason, we've had some MCIs in the past, so we've dealt with them. We had the Kirkersville shooting, where it's like we had some fatalities, and we evacuated 27 residents out of a nursing home. We had the nursing home fire in Patasko. We had to evacuate 78 residents and get them out of the nursing home and relocate them. We've had some incidents at some schools when it comes to some vaping incidents where we had multiple patients because they felt that it was necessary to start vaping, and all of a sudden you got 7, 8 students. So we escalate those to MCIs to get the resources that we needed. We had a couple other school bus accidents to where we're trying to treat and just to try to separate out 50 some students on a school bus. So we took all those and what we've learned from those, we do an after action on every single one of those kind of incidents. And over time, those after actions, they've helped us build our plan, which has been beneficial, and it helps us with our training. It was like we were fortunate enough 2 years ago, Walk-In Southwest Licking Schools donated us an old bus. So, our training grounds at Station 2, we have 13 acres on our training grounds. We shoved the bus down a ravine up, and had it tilting against a couple trees. And we threw a bunch of mannequins in there, and Mount Carmel East came in with their trauma team. And, they pretty much ran us through our paces, and we run everybody through that training, So it was like, so we've done trainings in the past to prepare for hopefully what you don't have to ever run on, right? Other highlight we felt was incident command was established quickly, and we branched off accordingly. It was like I knew as an incident commander I needed to branch it off immediately because there was no way I was going to be running effectively run the fire scene, the rescue operations, the EMS triage, transport, hazmat, and everything. It was like that all had to be branched off. So it was like we have a GOG that it just kind of breaks it down for us, and it's like we were able to follow that. So overall, we felt that the incident was successful both tactically and operationally. Between maintaining the command system and everybody else tactically, just showing up and doing their job. That was at the end of the day, everyone did their job. So just kind of a quick overview. So the I-70 crash went to an MCI level 3, and that's the date. It was dispatched at 0849. The last vehicle, that was me. I left at 1645. It was at the 118 mile marker. And one of the things we like to highlight to our fire board and to the residents that whoever asked was like, we had 22 of our personnel on scene within 10 minutes. That's important. It's important to have the appropriate staffing to get on scene and to be able to mitigate. If and no shame or no hit to anybody else, but if that would have happened 10 miles to the east, is like they don't have the resources that we had right where we were because we had Franklin County resources, we had Fairfield County resources, all from these staff fire departments that we were able to get people on the scene immediately. When you're starting to get further out, and he's like in our Station 6 deals with this quite often, to where we're showing up with 5. It takes 3 other departments to get to 5. So it's like, so those are some of the things. So that's a very fortunate thing. We really wanted to highlight appropriate staffing is important. This is just kind of a breakdown of who responded for us. Station 1, we had the battalion rescue and medic. Station 2, we had the engine and medic out of Station 2. Station 3, they were just running a 4-person company that day because their station captain, if anybody knows Captain Watling, he was doing his department physical that morning, and he was very upset the fact that he was doing his physical, as his guys told him, like, hey, while you were proving yourself physically capable, we were actually doing the job. So good job being there. So if anybody knows Captain Watling, please reach out to him and let him know. So yeah, he was not happy when he's at Mount Carmel East doing his physical. So they were running a 4-person company that day. Station 4, at that time, Station 4 was a medic company only station. So they sent their medic. Station 5 was in their medic. And then Station 6 was their rescue and a medic out of them. Administratively, it was the 3 chiefs, EMS coordinator, and then 3 of our 4 prevention officers were on scene. Out of our combined of all mutual aid companies and everything, we had and helicopters and everything, it was a total of 124 fire and EMS personnel on scene or en route. We ended up canceling quite a few of them in that regards. One of those, one of the things we were highlighting on that was if that happened at 8 o'clock at night, they just lost 10 of those people because they wouldn't have had any administrative. That would have been the battalion chief, the first one on scene. Battalion chief wouldn't have been just focused on the operations of the fire scene, of the fire and rescue. So it could have been a completely different outcome. And in regards of, I think it'd been the same tactically sound. It's just they didn't want to have as much resources, and that's for all the support that we got from all the mutual aid, and in that regards as well. So it's just, so those are some of the things to look at. Is like time of day is a big difference on what kind of deployment that you might have. Just background in law enforcement, we had 4 different law enforcement agencies on scene and the NTSB. Besides our fire department, we had 16 additional fire departments and 5 helicopters. 2 of the helicopters that were dispatched immediately when we went to MCI-3, the other 2 were getting dispatched. But in the meantime, they were all listening to the traffic as well. So all 5 helicopters launched at the same time. We didn't utilize any of them in regards to just because of time and distance, essentially. Where this accident location was, we would have been at the hospital before they landed, in which we would have been. It was like from the time of call to arrival at the hospital with our first trauma was 24 minutes, 27 minutes with the second trauma. So there's just no way that the hospital taking off, landing, loading, going to the hospital, we were better off with the ground. Plus 70 was wide open. We had it shut down, so we could go west all day. Dispatch centers, we had Licking County Regional Communications, that's fire control, MEC dispatch, and Columbus Fire Alarm Room. And then just, this is kind of a list of some other supporting agencies that sometimes we just don't think about. CODA came out, they helped get all like the instruments, because it was a band group that was going to go play for one of their board members that just got a position and they were going to go play at the State House. That's the reason why they were going to Columbus. COTS, we utilized COTS. When we declared the MCI, COTS Ginger doing triage ended up she was on the phone with COTS trying to give them information. We had a couple after actions with the hospital systems. One of the things that they figured out is to utilize the system that COTS produces the information out. About half the hospitals had somebody working that day that knew how to access it. So a lot of hospital systems were making decisions based off of social media. And thanks to some, people that feel that they need to get on social media, they immediately posted that there was 57 burned patients, there was an explosion, and we had 4 firefighters severely burned. That was one of the first Facebook posts put out there. So OSU, the burn center, and immediately shut down the entire surgical unit. We're getting 60-some burn patients. So OSU, when we talked to OSU, they're like, yeah, that's our fault. We shouldn't have based it off of social media, but we were listening and everything like that. Grant utilized LiveCAD. I don't know if you guys use LiveCAD out here or not, but Grant used LiveCAD to just figure out who was coming to their facility. Because they didn't have anybody working that day that could utilize the system that COTS pushes out the information. Hopefully, since our couple after actions we've done with them, that they've worked on that. Mount Carmel, our medical director is from Mount Carmel Hospital. So he was sitting at Mifflin's fire station in his office, and he was listening to all the traffic. He immediately got on the phone, said, hey, you're going to be getting a bunch of patients, because Mount Carmel is our closest trauma center. And they immediately activated. They shut down half of their surgical unit in anticipation, opened up their complete ER. It was amazing. They discharged 30 patients within like 40 minutes. And they're like, yeah. So they started joking around and laughing about that a little bit. But they got their ER completely empty out almost. They had almost 20-some support people come in off duty. They had 7 extra doctors. They staffed all their standalone ERs with an extra physician and nurse within an hour. So, which is, I think, is pretty impressive in that capacity. So, a lot of people got to utilize their action plans that they've been practicing for years, probably. United Methodist Church, that's where our Unification Center was. Licking County Coroner's Office, I mean, obviously they're coming out to do the investigation of the deaths. That became a very long, tedious process because they, that's what our crews document everything. So you move something, they take a photo of something. So that became quite the ordeal. But they were great in that capacity. Jay's Towing, personally, I think they're a top-notch organization. I mean, they showed up with 2 rotators. They had most of their people at their shop's in Hebron and Heath area. They showed up with 2 rotators. Every person that was there today, they brought a box truck. They brought porta-johns out. They brought everything out that they get. They had skid units. They brought in front end loaders, everything. So they were very good with support. ODOT, I mean, ODOT came out because it was on the highway. ODOT, they wanted to open up the eastbound lanes. We told them no. They got mad. State Patrol pretty much told them, get out of here. Like, we're not opening up this stuff. And so then they kind of just went away a little bit. But, I mean, they got to do what they got to do. We utilized our district chaplains. They went to the Reunification Center. Our Firefighters Association, they are the ones that staffs our support truck. Any working fire we have in the district, any training we got going on, and any major incident, it's all of our retired people and volunteered people in the community that come in and staff to support rehab vehicles for us. And they respond throughout the entire county and neighboring counties if they're requested. Southwest Licking Schools provided buses to get the kids. Franklin County Sheriff's Office brought therapy dogs, which was pretty awesome in regards to how they work. They bring these dogs in. They just let them start walking around. The dogs figure out who they need to sit by. When they sit by the kid, and they said they witnessed it happen, the dog would just sit by the kid. At some point, that kid would just start petting the dog. And then the dog would just lay down. And then all of a sudden, other kids come over. And then that kind of just forced them to start talking to each other. They said it's just really cool on how the dogs work. EMA, obviously we had EMA out there just because of the amount of incident. They became a great liaison and logistics for us. American Red Cross, they just came out to help support and with the Reunification Center. And then the State Fire Marshal was just contacted to let it know that we had fire fatalities within the bus. And they just let us know to call them if we needed any more additional support. Ready? So it's kind of just broke down a little bit. Fire attack. The fire attack and rescue was directed by Battalion 401. He supervised the Rescue 401, Engine 402, 403, 611, 592, and Tanker 631. Rescue 401 had the first suppression line. Engine 403 was second arrive, and they essentially, I told them immediately supply a rescue, and they needed to get in that bus. To not be too, I could see kids in the bus from my position. I knew that there was at least 1 or 2 people. They were not survivable people, but I didn't know what was going to be in the front of the bus because the front of the bus still wasn't involved. They were able to get to row 9. There's 13 rows in the bus. So they were able to push up to row 9 and they were pushed back with heavy fire and heat and to that point. So they were at least able to search that front portion of the bus to see if there was anybody survivable. Unfortunately, the ones were inside of the fatalities, they weren't survivable. Engine 402 arrived and supplied the rescue with water, pulled a second line, and began to extinguish it. Engine 611 came from they came from the eastbound lanes. They pulled into a crossover. They started suppression on the semi. Our engines focused on the bus for suppression and rescue. Engine 611, 592 went to the semi, and Tanker 631, when it arrived, it became just the supply for everybody. Essentially, everything was knocked down with the tank water that we had on scene. 631 topped all the trucks before it left. So it was a very good, it was a rapid suppression. Strengths: immediately engaged in aggressive fire attack. Immediately began searching for survivors on the bus, and the control of the fire was rapid. So those are some of the highlights. So this is, you can click through, yeah. So breakdown of the MCI triage and transport. So we had 38 greens. So, that was the one thing that OSU's doc that does the salt triage, with the whole, what's it called? 3D glasses. What is that called? The glasses were VR. There you go. Thanks. Appreciate you. Does all the VR training and everything like that. Immediately calls right afterwards. Said, "Hey, what kind of triage did you do?" I said, "Sick, not sick." And they're like, "So you didn't use SMART or SALT? You didn't use SALT?" And they're like, "Yeah, SALT's in our protocol, but we use sick, not sick." And they're like, "So," I said, our medic crew that was first arrived did say, "If you can stand, walk to me." And he's like, "So you use SALT?" I was like, "Yeah, you can say we use SALT." I was like, "It is on there." But it's like, I really struggle with, and it's like, this is kind of just my personal thing. It's not anything. I struggle with sometimes with triage, and we put it as a weakness at one point because we didn't utilize tags, the triage tags. Would it have probably been nice to have some form of identification on them? Yeah, probably, right? But Ginger was doing such a great job with tracking, and she had a list of every student that was on that bus, and she could just keep track very well, that every day we go out to work and we go into a house, we immediately go sick, not sick. Like when we walk through the door, we're doing an assessment, they're sick, not sick. We have an auto accident with 4 or 5 patients, it's sick, not sick. Like, you're immediately doing that. But if we have 15 patients, no, we have to change everything we do. We do assault triage, we got to do this, we got to go down these steps. I was like, and then it kind of just takes you away from what you do every day. So the one things that are so out of the norm, we want you to do something completely different than what you're so used to every day. So we use sick, not sick. And that's what they used out there. I had a 20+ year guy on the medic. I had a 30+ year guy on that medic. And I had another 20+ year person on that medic. And Ginger's got 30+ years experience too. According to the hospital system, we didn't screw up one triage. One patient wasn't triaged incorrectly. So I think that has something to do with use your instincts, use your knowledge. Granted, if you're a 6-month person and you've never had anything, yeah, that structure is probably very good. And that's why we put it as a weakness, because we're relying on only the experience versus across the board, because, we are a very young department as well. I mean, it was like, since I've been downstairs for 7 years as an assistant chief, we've hired 50-some full-time. So that gives you a perspective on how young we truly are as a department. But 38 of the involved were greens. They went to the reunification center. We transported 13 with minor. We transported 3 that was delayed transport. And then we had 2 immediates, 6 deceased, 62 total. We were running into some issues in the aspect of getting kids just to decide if they were hurt or not. Because, well, my friend's not going to go, I'm good. Well, they're going to go, I want to go now. So it's just, I mean, they just went through that horrible trauma, physically and emotionally. And at one point we just had to say, you know what, if you think you're hurt, we're just going to go. Well, let's just get in the truck and let's go. We were able to get on the phone with some of the parents, and some of the parents said, no, I don't want them to go. I'm going to the unification center. And that's where it was. When we went to the unification center, we posted a medic there, a medic unit. So if anybody changed their mind, we immediately had a medic unit there just to take them wherever they needed to go. So you can go ahead and push on. So this is just kind of a detailed breakdown. I don't know if it just tells you, who, what their status was, and then what facilities we went to. One of the things during our critique with the hospital systems, they were baffled that we used the standalone ERs. And we're like, we wanted to use standalone ERs because we didn't know we were going to take our non-emergent, our least injured to you, so we can keep the trauma centers open, available for patients. So they're like, oh, that was such a great idea. But that information wasn't able to be passed on to the hospital systems because they didn't have the access to the software that COTS was pushing that information out. So that was one of their lessons learned. But it ended up being really good. We ended up having some medics transport 3-4 patients, just because they were minor, but they were all going to go to the same facility. Here you go, just take these 3. So we knew we had enough medics in reserve in case more people changed their mind. Yep, very good. And then this just kind of breaks it down on what their statuses were. You know, we had the 2 immediates and 3 LS. Actually, is like one of the patients. She's doing pretty well now. She's still going through rehab. She had several fractures. We were fortunate enough to once we transported her to the hospital because she's from the Akron area. We were fortunate enough to go get her from Mount Carmel East and take her to Akron. So yeah, you can tell when you got 911 medics because the guy that was transporting, we ended up having to give Zofran and everything on the way back because he was so motion sickness because he just rode for 90, almost 2 hours backwards, and he's used to 10 minutes, but not the 2 hours. So it was kind of fun. We gave him a hard time. But we were able to get and do some pain management for her on the way so we can get her back home. The bus driver, he was another immediate. He's still going through stuff. That guy is going through a lot of stuff. It's like the last I knew, he's only spent 1 or 2 days out of the hospital or a rehab facility from that point. And just to highlight him, if he wouldn't have opened that door before they lost air pressure, it'd have been a lot different story too. His quick thinking in that aspect of getting those doors open saved a lot of lives. And then the guy in the red car, he was, as Ginger was approaching, he was adamant, I am not going to go to the hospital. I don't need it. And she's like, okay. She's like, you sit right here and we'll be back for you. So when it was a Violet medic that showed up, she's like, hey, go check on him. And he ended up deciding to go. He ended up having a broken back. So it's like, sometimes that was a kind of a lesson learned in that aspect. That was one of our delayed yellows to where like their adrenaline's pumping so hard right now and they're like, I'm not going to go. But yeah, they still had, significant injuries in reference to that. Okay, ready. So some lesson learned, utilize the triage tags. It didn't pose an issue with this. Some of the things that, the hospital system, because they have the barcoding system and things like that, they're like, oh, if you could have used barcodes out there, we could have tracked them from the point. And the kind of the message was like, we had 62 people. We're not taking the time to scan. We want people to, we're getting them to the hospital. We're triaging, getting going. But we did talk about, maybe if we had slap bands or something like, hey, there's a yellow. If anybody knows anything about the Vegas shooting, one of the issues they had was people were taking black tags off of bodies that they triaged and were putting on themselves, going up to people and say, hey, I'm really hurt. I got a black tag, because they noticed the people that were laying on the ground had black tags. So it just depends on the scale of your incident on how it works. I know that there's an effective way to utilize it. I just don't know if we've got there yet. Because originally triage was done for airplane crashes and things like that, where, here, put your stake there, put your information here. This is where the body was. This is their information that was with it. I don't know. So we're still working that out. We're trying to figure out a better way. We just really go back to the sick, not sick. It's just, I don't know. Maybe when I'm done in there, then they'll go somewhere else with a different method. But I know Chief Majors is on the sick, not sick too. But and then we talked about, if those 38 patients were of significance of injury, if we had to deal with, 38 criticals, did we have enough resources immediately in the aspect of getting resources in people's hands to do life-saving procedures? The airway, stop bleeding, stuff like that. So we talked about putting more MCI RTF bags on our medic units. Right now, they're only on our engine companies. Because our engine companies are our tactical EMS, they're the ones that are going to maybe making the entry in that capacity. So possibly putting more resources on our medics so every person can jump out with a jump bag and be able to immediately handle those life threats. Strengths, we do regularly train with MCI incidents, utilizing the hands-on, the virtual reality, and tabletops, utilizing command and communications during our training to make it a real-world simulations. Getting the roster on the bus, the only thing that was that we were missing with that roster was they didn't put any of the staff members that were on the bus. It was a list of the kids. We had every kid. But we just didn't have any of the staff members that were on that bus. And there was no reference that there was a chaperone vehicle with staff going with that bus as well. First responders and the school staff and the civilian, we felt they did a credible job getting people off the bus and out of the vehicle and out of harm's way. The time of day does matter. Weekday mornings we had increased resources at all levels of the rank and structure. Designing medic units to responders working on scene proportionate to the number of the scene responders. So what we got? Extrication. Was there? I don't know if there was one in between there or not. But so improvements. We should have limited the amount of personnel. Like I should have recognized that. We've been through this before with these shootings that we had. As I said, we have a pretty young department. The extrication was intensive. It was about 6 hours of the process because you extricate, they document. You can only imagine what those bodies look like, right? When the vehicle between it was unrecognizable. We thought we had more bodies in the bus than what they were telling us because we were finding bodies in the bus from the other vehicle because of the amount of impact. I mean, it was a 70-mile-an-hour impact into a 10-mile-an-hour moving vehicle in between. So that kind of threw us off just a little bit, and because we thought we're like, okay, you guys' manifest is wrong. We're finding more people, and then that's when we're like, okay, no, there's another vehicle here. And that other vehicle got pushed up into the back of the bus and then wedged underneath the semi. So we should have been more selective on who was up in there doing these extrications. Strengths, the crews were professional and patient with the process, with the coroner that they needed to file, and the process it did prolong the event. Like if we were able to just do this extrication with Jay's towing, we'd have had it done within an hour. But the documentation portion of the investigation, that's really slowed things down for us. Hazmat. So we put down that I needed to focus on the contents of the semi-trailer more. We kind of went on the word of both of the front semi operators. He's like, no, I'm just carrying animal fat. There was something leaking out of the back. Like I should have had sent somebody there immediately to say, no, I need to see what's in this vehicle, because in the grand scheme of things, if that would have been some kind of toxic chemical, everybody there would have just been exposed. So we should have immediately went there. I knew we had batteries. They were all over the place. We didn't have that one identified immediately, which that was a weakness on my part as the command, and to limit our exposure risk. Demobilization. So that's one of the things we highlight on all of our incidents. Like we do it on our structure fires and things like that. Like last night, for example, we had a working structure fire. We bring overtime people in. They staff a reserve engine and a medic. while they're doing their fire. So, and then as companies come back in, it gives them the ability to get rehabbed up, get their showers, get their equipment back in. And this company or these other companies are taking runs for them. Like last night, it was a night fire. So those two companies stay on duty for the rest of the night to try to help supplement for them. But we try to make pertinent decisions in the fact, okay, yeah, they're going to need a little bit longer to rehab. So we need to make sure our resources are where they need to be. So they have plenty of time to do what they need to do, get rehabbed up, cleaned up, get their trucks back in service. The nice part about this, it was a union meeting going on. So we had a lot of off-duty personnel already at station. So they immediately, we had 2 station captains there. One started running out as a battalion. The other one started coordinating other things. They got all the reserve apparatus in service, and they spread out through the district. So they were able to handle, because we ended up, there was 13 runs during that 8-hour period that we were out there that they handled. That was still within the district. So that's, the importance part of making sure you have supplemental staffing coming in. And they remained on station until all on-duty duty had the appropriate time to rehab. Everyone was offered. If anybody want to go home, they were offered. Obviously, no one chose to do that. They'd rather stay with their coworkers. The critical incident stress management. During the incident, several members were exposed several hours. I mean, I was like, we should have recognized this. We've been through it before. And we had some staff members starting to have some issues. One of the things we've learned in the past, though, is we don't let everybody come in from the outside immediately. Was the one thing that everyone said for some of the other incidents, like, give us time to actually process ourselves first before you decide to bring anybody in. We're like, okay, great. So everyone, goes back to their station. We let everybody just, that whole kitchen table talk is better treatment for most people. We let it go for over the weekend. Monday morning, we brought everybody in. We had 3 units stay over. And they stayed over. Staff mandatory to everybody come to Station 1. We brought in some retired guys in. We brought in some of our peer support personnel from the department. And, it's one of those things, we just brought donuts, coffee, everything, sat down. Chief Majors talked to them a little bit in the aspect of like, what we thought we did good and everything like that. If anybody needs any help, let us know. It's like, you have plenty of opportunities. If you don't want to come to us, please go to one of these people. One of the things. And then the chiefs, we just left the room. About 2-3 hours later, everybody just came out. Everybody's laughing, having a good time, right? I mean, they said that was the better thing, because what we found out with some of these young guys or young people was they've never been told how to process anything bad. And and they just didn't really know like how emotionally that they should be like, okay, is it okay if I'm not affected by this? Or I was like, is there something wrong with me if this didn't affect me? Or this is really affecting me. Is like, so is this the wrong field for me? Like, because this has affected me. I mean, some of these people within the first 6 months of their job, they just got their lifetime incident. I mean, like, I hope that's their lifetime incident. I hope that, in that regards. So those are some of the things that, our peer support people have really highlighted, and it's going to become part of our onboarding process. They kind of sit down with a peer support person and, hey, if you have these issues or if anything comes up, this is who you contact, this is who we can talk to, just to make sure they know that they have avenues. We had a couple people after that meeting, they just said, hey, I'm still having problems. Sleeping, or I keep seeing it. And then we directed them in the right areas. And thankfully everyone seems to be doing good now. But they've multiple members came up to us and said they felt better after having the ability to take that 72 hours to decompress on their own and then have that meeting and then follow up with whatever they needed. Because we kept our chaplains out. We kept everybody out. Like, we had multiple calls of offer of help. And we're like, we appreciate every single bit of it. But just let our people be on their own here just a little bit with amongst each other. It's the better treatment right now. So this is during the incident. We had 3 mutual aid departments come in. They self-deployed themselves to come cover our district, which is awesome. That was one of the things that Chief Paxton helped me before he's retired now from Violet. He showed up to the scene. He said, "Hey, what do you need?" Because I had dispatch centers, I had chiefs, I had other departments calling my cell phone during this incident saying, "Hey, what do you need?" It's like, "Do you need people?" So I just said, "Hey, Chief Paxton," I was like, "I'm just going to text them all back your phone number and just take care of the district." So he went to Station 3. He started coordinating it, and then that's when he talked to one of the captains one of our captains. He's like, "Yeah, you guys got it," and he went back to his district. But our 14 off-duty personnel that stayed staffed 2 engines and 2 medics, and then they handled 13 incidents while we were on I-70. And then this is time for any questions. This is when rapid fire. Come on.
Did you utilize a tactical worksheet, or was it all mental?
It was all mental until Chief Trench was able to get there. And that was about 18 minutes into the run. And then he started scribing. No, I did not have a tactical worksheet. Should I have? Probably. Just to make sure I was hitting my benchmarks. I was fortunate enough that, I had my, and it was like, I highlight it, but I think it's important. Like, I gave my battalion chief the operations of fire and rescue. Like, I'm his resource now to get him what he needs. Like, so that's where it's like, okay, we're keeping this incident going to whatever, but it's like, what do you need? I need this. Okay, I'll get it for you. That's where I became and try to coordinate. One of the biggest not hiccups, but one of the things that caused me some of the most issues was knowing if I had enough resources, because they're still trying to triage, right? And they're trying to go through all these kids, and it's like, I've got 20 medics coming, and which I didn't highlight. Out of those 20, we dedicated 2 to our people on our incident. So not all those medics were to the end. It's like 2 of those medics came to our people operating on the scene just because of the intensity of everything going on. So I kept going to triage, and I'd be like, "Hey, do you need more? Do I put trucks in service? Like, what do you need?" And they're like, "Okay." And then that's when we were running into issues with the kids not changing their mind constantly. I was like, "Okay, everything's going to keep coming." I was like, "I don't need the helicopters. I'll cancel the helicopters, but we're just going to bring everything. And until we know definitively if these kids are coming or are going to go or not." So that's where we went with that. Yeah.
You said 20 medics coming into your incident with your MCI. Did you identify or find that some of those transport units were possibly unfamiliar with the area, the potential hospitals they'd be transported to? Did that become a realization?
Not in that immediate area. So the question was just with all the different mutual aid companies coming into to this incident, was there any issues with possible familiarity of the incident location and what hospitals or where the hospitals were? We did have some of our east side companies coming in. We sent the one east side company that would probably had the most. They went to the county hospital with 3 people. Everybody else that was coming mainly came from the west. I mean, granted, that's where most of our resources are going to come from. Out there is like, were we utilizing east companies? Yeah, but when we're utilizing those east companies, it's one truck coming. The one issue we did have was, and I'm not going to say it's an issue, but it just kind of threw off the deployment a little bit. lot of people auto dispatched. Not a lot. Some people auto dispatched where they sent because they heard fire, so they automatically jumped in their fire truck when I would have wanted their medic unit in those situations. But that's at the end of the day, that became minor. We were able to get enough resources coming in.
Being a high school, band going to a competition, were you encountered or did you have to deal with parents following the bus?
So the vehicle that was between the bus and the semi was a chaperone vehicle. That's where 3 of the victims came from. Those were the only ones that were in there. The high school staff was already in Columbus for this ceremony. So we had staff, administrative staff there within 30 minutes, which was very beneficial in the aspect. They were like, okay, yes, that's who that is. They were able to identify students for us and confirm like your list is correct with these students. And then this student is, yes, that's the one. This is the student that's going to Mount Carmel East with Medic 591. So that became very beneficial. I mean, obviously, if we wouldn't have had that, then we would have been trying to identify later. Is like because we had a couple, which threw a little bit of confusion that had the same last names. So we're like, okay, hey, this person went. Okay, what's their first name? And this one went to this hospital, and then this one went to this hospital. So that was kind of a disadvantage in that because then that split the family because they went to 2 different hospitals. If hindsight's always better than foresight in that capacity. We should have made if their treatment plans were the same, they should have went to the same facility for family's sake in that regards.
So you guys did like a super incredible job on the front end. You got lucky daytime, lots of staff, the union meeting, everything was stacked up. It was the worst day of everyone's lives, right? In real time, so we've all seen or heard the radio traffic or whatever in real time from a command and staff perspective. It probably didn't stack up as clean and as neat as it all sounds. Can you talk about like your first 10 or to 18 minutes, just a little bit more? Like you probably had a bunch of people adding themselves. How do you manage that? I think that's what he's getting at when he's asking about the tactical worksheet, because that's incredible that you were able to handle everything.
So me personally, thankfully, LiveCAD didn't crash. At the end of the day, I mean, because during the Kirkersville incident, they had an active shooter, so they immediately disabled it because they didn't want all the residents to see it. And we're like, that's how we know what's coming. So thankfully, that didn't crash or go down. I mean, obviously, we had our other CAD. We used Tyler CAD, and I had an EMDT in the vehicle, so I was able to keep track of that. Did we have some unpertinent information coming over the radio? Absolutely. I don't acknowledge it. That's why it was like we had a couple companies that were calling Chief 400 to give them information. Like Todd, Chief Majors, just didn't answer them. Like, no, I'm not the commander. Like, you need to go to who's in incident command. And then it was like one radio transmission was to let me know that, hey, they're still letting traffic westbound at the 158 exit. I didn't acknowledge it. I don't care. They're not getting past us. Like, what's it matter to me? You know what I mean? It's like that's not pertinent information. When they add their companies, thankfully, they pop up. That's the importance for us. That's why we go to a tactical channel, because none of that traffic's on there. Like that tactical channel, that's the most important channel to me. Am I listening to the ops channel? Yeah, my command channel, because that's my responding companies. That's fire control calling me, but the most important channel is my tactical channel, because that's the people that are doing work. And if they have a need, I need to answer them before I ever answer this one, in my eyes. I don't know if that answers you or not. Are you going to have? Yeah, it's like in the first 10 to 18 minutes. One of the things like I ran into, like I had to make a lot of decisions all of a sudden because I had the entire department showing up at the same time because they all came from Station 1. I mean, it was a parade going down 310. And it was like, if Station 2 was in quarters, They would have probably been first. Station 1 would have been right on their tails because they all meet at 3:10 and 40. Station 3 meets at 3:10 and 40. One's is at 3:10 and 40. I mean, sometimes it's a crapshoot. Like they have to get on the radio sometimes and be like, "Hey, we're approaching." If they're not watching their MDT to see where the trucks are, because that's just kind of like that center point with all the stations merging together right there. So they might have been, if the engine was the first on scene and setting up that initial attack. But no, I had the rescue, engine 403, engine 402, medic 405, medic 402, battalion 401, and EMS 401, all on scene within 15 seconds of my arrival. I would have been there a little bit sooner, but when you heard my radio traffic, it said, "Hey, go east in the westbound." I was already over top the overpass at that point. So I had to fight the traffic in the eastbound because everybody's pulled off on both directions out of their vehicles, videotaping it. So, that's what I fought with that traffic a little bit. Thankfully, it was only a half mile that we had to get through there. I mean, I ended up riding the median most of the way in my car to try to get to the scene close enough. Would I have positioned my vehicle a little bit different? Yeah. I wouldn't have been right there. I would have put it right on top of the median and faced it so I could actually see, because that was some of the issues I had, because I was facing eastbound, and I could look out to my left and I had the bus and I had the semi and I had the red SUV, but all triage and everything was done 300 feet behind me. So if I would have been up on top of the median, because they have the bumps up, and if I would have got up on top of that, then I might have had a little bit better visual. So, and it might have reduced some radio traffic because I could see what's actually happening versus just everything based off of just radio communications. Because, and it's like, and I might have been wrong. I might be wrong in my thinking of it. I just felt that I needed to stay in the car to control that scene to where it was, because there was just so many people. Because when I first pulled up, it was someone immediately to my window saying, "There's kids still in that bus." And I was like, okay. And I was like, and I got more people coming. So I was like, windows up. It's just got to be that way, because I had so much coming right there. I knew those resources were going to be able to start mitigating. So
Were your resources disciplined? Or kind of just go.
no, they were disciplined, and that was the fortunate. I mean, they all. I consider myself extremely lucky with the department I work with. I really do. And I'm sure you guys think the same thing about your department, right? The rescue knew exactly what they were going to be doing when they got up there. They were the first engine rescue. They knew they had to get fire out. Engine 403, I told them, I was like, you got to get on that bus. They came off the truck masked up. Like, they immediately went to the bus. Engine 402, they got on the radio, said, "Hey, we're hooking into the rescue, pulling a second line." That's what they verbalized that over the radio. Like, everybody knew what they needed to do. 405, or 402, they were the first medic on scene. I assigned them to start triage on patients. They said, "Hey, we got someone doing CPR in the median, or in the berm." I'm like, "All right, start working out arrest, and I'll get you more resources." Medic 405 pulled up. I was like, "Medic 405, start triaging." So then they took on those roles. I didn't really highlight about the cardiac arrest. We had a kid, cardiac arrest, and the medium. He was ejected from the very rear of the bus to about halfway up to the bus. The staff pulled him out and immediately started compressions. Ginger made a very tough call, and she told the crew, like, "You got to stop. And you've got 60 other people here. Like, this one," to make that call on a kid. I was like, I didn't envy her at all in that situation. But it's like, and the crew, like, they're like working it. Like, "No, this is a kid. We're working it." Like, "No, like, you have to move on. We've got a lot of other people." So, and it's like, that was a very tough call, right? And it was the right call. It's just, those are tough calls to make in those situations, and things like that. But so everybody just started deploying that way, and then that's what helped when Chief Majors became the scene liaison. Battalion 591, I gave him EMS operations, so he oversaw triage transport in the treatment sector. And, you know, so I was talking to him. So at the end of the day, I talked to Battalion 591, and I talked to Chief 400, and I talked to Battalion 401, and then Fire Control. And then I would talk to Ginger every once in a while on the radio as the triage, but she was funneling all of her information through Battalion 591. So essentially, my comms became 4 to 5 people, and then Fire Control as my other one, only on the other channel with the responding companies. Because if you've listened to the audio, you kept hearing me. It's like, no, you need to go to Ops 2 and talk to Battalion 591. Like, it's like all these responding medics keep coming in, and they're staying on the Ops channel. Like, no, you've been assigned to Ops 2. Go to talk to EMS and stuff like that.
Chief, I think one thing that with the group that's listening in here today, there's a lot of, seeking promotion, new officers, and kind of early in that stage.
Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about coming into something like this? It's one of those where the stress response is going to get you because it's not your typical run. And as information's coming in, what do you use? What's your technique to try and keep you from tipping over the stress scale through that curve?
To try to stay
Kind of
calm.
bring it back in.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Some people, I mean, if you panic, you're not doing anybody any good. I guess that's always what I've been taught. Like, my dad was in the fire service. He told me, it's like, you don't do anybody good if you're become the same as everybody that you're responding to, and panic. I was like, so like, essentially right before, if I'm gonna do a size up, I mean, you could hear my voice elevate a little bit when I did that size up. But it's one of those things where you got to take a deep breath and just fall back on your training, because that's that's your saving grace. Because when anybody's in a high stress situation, you always fall back to your training. And that's why it's important to do these trainings. That's why it's important to do these MCI. Like, if you're doing MCI trainings, do it in real world scenarios. Force your battalions, force your officers to run Maydays. It was like in a real life and real lifestyle scenario, because you don't have the reset button. When, hey, that didn't go right, let's do it all again here real quick. Let's just stop and reset. You don't get a reset in those situations. So it's one of those things where the more you do those trainings and the more you work on controlling your breathing and essentially, I guess, if you prepare yourself to handle those situations, then you're going to be able to prevail through those situations. I don't know if that explains some of it. I mean, it's like, as I was, went through my career and everything, and I always put myself in a position to where I always wanted to know my job as best as I could possibly know it. And I always wanted to know the job above me, because you never know when you're ever going to be put in those situations. So, and I think that's in any decent organization, is like, if you're a firefighter, your organization is preparing you for that next step. If it's an engineer or if it's an officer, like, they're always preparing you to know the job above you and below you. And so then you become more universal as a person and more universal as an employee. So does that highlight what you were asking, Chief? So
What was the fuel type on the bus?
what's that?
What was the fuel type?
It was a
on the
diesel.
school bus?
Is that what you? Yeah, it was a diesel bus. Yeah, it was a 2000, and I've got the dimensions of it on my fob. I actually got some interior photos of what the bus looked like prior to the accident and stuff. It was a 2011 Van Hool diesel pusher style bus. It had 60 seats, and it has a bathroom all the way on the passenger side in the rear. That's the style, bus it was. Obviously, some of the fire load probably came from the saddle tanks busting on the semi. Both semi saddle tanks were completely just busted, destroyed. That semi just left its first pickup in Hebron. So, it could have had full saddle tanks. It was a company out of Zanesville. If it filled up before it left, it was full, I mean, it's only traveled 20, 30 miles for that day or for that moment. So we were just thankful they weren't lithium batteries in the back of that semi.
What caused the accident?
I don't know the exact cause. I know what the Highway Patrol put in on the median. They had the speed limit, or they had the speed of the semi in front of the bus at 10 mile an hour, and they had the speed of the semi that rear-ended everybody at 70. So you put 2 points together. I don't think they've actually came out with a true conclusion. I know everything, all of our stuff has been subpoenaed and public records requests for court reasons. So I mean, I'll be testifying to this at some point, probably in the next 5 to 10 years for what we did. NTSB, they won't have any kind of ruling probably for another 8 to 12 months. The interesting part is, just like a side note, I don't know if anybody's ever done an investigation with NTSB. I was interviewed by them for like 2 hours. And the highlight out of that interview, I get included with all their stuff from this point on. I've become part of that investigation. So I get to read everything before it gets published to the public, which is, I don't know, I guess I've never been involved with something like that. So it's kind of a neat aspect of the investigation portion. One of the things that the NTSB ran into was ODOT wanted to get that highway open so fast that they had Kokosing sitting on the ramp before we left, and they re-asphalted I-70 that night. They milled it down, re-asphalted, and had it open by 7 a.m. the next morning, and destroyed all the evidence for NTSB that arrived the next day. So they had to base all of their evidence off of video traffic cameras, video, body cam, any photos off of social media. They were having to base all their stuff, so they couldn't get samples, asphalt samples, anything off that. I got to meet with the one investigator from the NTSB. His specialty is black box retrieval. And they were able to get the black box out of that car that was smashed in between the semi. His expertise is recovery of material from a black box under severe fire. And he brought it in. It's under, like, in a suitcase. He had it all locked up. He showed me. The black box is supposed to be like this dimension by this dimension. And it was about this size by this size. And he's like, yeah, I'll still be able to get data off of it. So, like, that's pretty impressive, man. He used to be a cop, and now he's working for NTSB as some kind of engineer at a whole nother level. Anything else? Yeah, man.
You guys, you sectioned that off early on and effectively, and you used to describe. Is that like habit for your command officers to do, even on like middle of the road incidents like house fires? Are you sectioning off divisions and using?
Yeah, for like structure fires, we follow blue card in that regards as a structure. So we're utilizing alphas, we're using Charlies, divisions and all that. We try to get our battalions to scribe. One of the things that we do, so like right now on 3 unit, we have a guy on light duty. His only restriction is he can't climb a ladder, so he can't go back to work. So he drives our battalion now as a 24-hour light duty position. So until he gets cleared. So those are some of the things that we started to utilize to try to get, one, it keeps people at work, keeps them in the routine of our 24/48s and all that stuff. And then plus it becomes a huge benefit because now when a battalion is responding, they're able to read their notes and they're able to keep track. And then they can also become some of their own scribe. And then that role becomes, okay, now I've got an accountability, or I've got all the other roles. So, I mean, will we ever have a permanent driver for a battalion? Probably not. We'd rather put a butt in another seat to have more of an effective response force on an incident in that regards. But when it comes, the benefits are huge having that extra person, because Chief Majors, when he was a battalion, I was assigned to Station 2, and I rode the medic a lot at Station 2 just because I was the least senior person at that moment. And every working fire, I was on the medic, so I became his scribe. And so I learned a lot, right? And it's like, so you're always, because of the driver and the officer, if we weren't in a role of fire suppression or anything like that, we'd be kind of just came support roles on incidents. What's that, man?
The first engine that was on, did they, when they made entry in the bus, did they take the hose line with them, or they just searched?
No, they searched. They came off the truck, masked up, clicked in air, and started searching because would have been beneficial to have a line? Probably. Would it have slowed them down some? Yeah. And it was like, I was told that there were still kids on that bus. I could see, physically see a kid or two that have already succumbed just because of the extent of the injuries that I could visualize. The front half of the bus was not involved. It was all smoke. So if there was a survivable life, we needed to get to them really quick. They cleared the first 9 rows until they got pushed back. Those victims were in row 11. So to give you a reference on that aspect. Did it eat that crew up? Oh yeah. Because they're like, they wanted to get back to them because, in their eyes, they know that there's 2 people on this bus. They're going to get to them. And they just couldn't. And unfortunately, with the intensity of the impact, they became entangled quite a bit. And it would have been a working extrication in the back of that bus to try to get them out to begin with, even without the fire environment. Yeah.
Is that aggressive search culture something you guys have cultivated at West Licking, or is that just like a crew?
No, we do. The search culture, right? I grew up in that, search was always a thing. I don't know. I don't know why it kind of, the idea of it supposedly went away. I don't know. To me, it's like, it's always been a thing. We always search. But now it's, so, I mean, we're pretty, I consider us a very aggressive department. We train that way. Fortunately, we have our burn buildings to be able to train in, and we train in that capacity. Like last night, for example, right? We're working house fire, first 2 engines hitting the garage, second line's going to the rear, tower crews going through the front door doing a search. I don't, but I mean, those are just our tactics, I guess. I don't.
Sounds like we have one.
Yeah. So with Kirkersville shooting, we utilized the plan that the facility had. So they already had an agreement with the church across the street. The issue was we couldn't utilize it immediately just because of the incident type of itself, just because of the shooter. But once we got to the point where we could utilize it, we moved some of the residents. The biggest issue we had with Kirkersville was Pinekirk Care Facility is a state facility for sexual offenders and rapists and everything like that. So we couldn't take them to certain facilities. We got to the point where the state patrol